What is the greatest year in music history? Well, I've done a lot of redux, top 10s as they are now. But today, I'm going to do my favorite year ever, 1984. I think some of the best singles and albums were released in 1984, and this is my top 10 of 1984. Celebrate this glorious, impactful year in music. I'm counting down the 10 best songs in 1984, including so many great stories. There's one where the singer let the drummer have a go at recording the vocals, and it became the band's biggest song. There's another that's a party anthem that most people don't realize is about God, and one where the singer hit a high note in the chorus that was so grand, he knew he would never be able to hit those notes again. Sure enough, on his next tour, he had to bring in a backup singer to nail it. We have many of the artists participating in this celebration of 1984, the 10 best songs of the year. See you if you agree with my picks. Next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time, especially today. Really excited about today's episode. You know, if you ever inserted a metal cassette into Teddy Ruxpin's tape deck just to see him jam out, you'll dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. I did that a few times. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the white button, click the bell so you always know when our stuff's coming out. Also, make sure to go to professorofrock.com to vote for the greatest band in our brackets. Sign up for exclusive content. We're going to start doing some live features there. All right, so I'm doing the top 10 songs of 1984. These are my picks. My only criteria here is that the song had to be a top 40 hit in 1984. It had to peak in the top 40 in 1984, because otherwise I'd have some really obscure songs in my 1984 list, so I'm going to go with that criteria. These are my picks. This is not the Redux. This is not as they were. We're not going to recount them down. See if you agree. I want to see what your 10 are. All right, let's start with number 10. Before we get started, I have to add, this was the toughest top 10 I've ever had to do. So many on the cutting room floor. I had plenty of honorable mentions, and I'll talk about them at the end. But let's get to it. Coming in at number 10, I have The Scorcher, Rock You Like a Hurricane by the Scorpions. Scorp's signature song was written by their frontman and co-founder Klaus Meine and his co-founding partner, lead guitarist Rudolf Schenker, along with drummer Herman Rarebell. Unlike Klaus's more romantic and introspective songs, Rock You Like a Hurricane, it dives headfirst into, raw animal magnetism, embodying the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle of the Boys from Hanover, most successful German rock band in American history. With vivid imagery like a purring cat, a hungry wolf, and a cage of lust, the song captures their untamed spirit. Song was originally very dirty. Replaced the song rock with the F-bomb, and you get the idea of what the song was gonna be. Problem is, it would never have been a hit. Breaking down the dynamics of the song, one key element is really the tension between the verses and the chorus. Rudolf recalls Klaus revisiting the lyrics about 9 times, trying to get this song to click right. Then on the 10th attempt, everything fell into place and they locked into the song's raw, straight-ahead power, and they got it down. So when band members submitted the track to their record label with the F-bomb in it, in all seriousness, they were going to do this, the label thought that they had lost their minds. They changed the one word, and it became the first single from the album, Love at First Sting. The title was tamed, but the album cover was still very controversial. So much so that the label had to put out a version with a clean cover because of complaints by Walmart, the largest record retailer in the U.S. in the 80s. In 1984, Rock You Like a Hurricane with Rudolph's iconic guitar riff was a multi-format hit, but not a runaway smash. It stalled at number 78 in the UK, number 37 in Canada, and number 25 here in the Hot 100. It did go to number 5 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart, but it's since become one of the biggest songs in classic rock history. So there's that. Jumping into number 9, on our countdown of the top 10 best songs of '84, I've got Prince, the great one, with Let's Go Crazy. Let's Go Crazy is heavier than just a song to get the party started. It's a call to persevere through life's struggles and a fight against evil. Actually, in the song, Satan is symbolized as the de-elevator, trying to bring us all down. Prince urges us not to let the devil break our spirit, but to turn to God for strength, go crazy, and aim for a higher floor. The opening of the song is pure pop history, one of the most iconic spoken intros ever. Prince steps into the role of a preacher backed by a soulful church organ and delivers what feels like the ultimate rock and roll sermon. He reminds us to embrace life to the fullest while keeping our sights on an eternal, never-ending happiness beyond this world.
We are gathered here today to get through this thing called life.
If you're an 80s kid, you know this sermon by heart. It's the sermon we all wanted to hear. Let's Go Crazy, though, has George Clinton's fingerprints all over it. He'd been doing similar vibes with P-Funk for years, like his classic line, "Free your mind and your ass will follow."
Free your mind and your ass will follow.
Our number 9 best song of '84 kicks off Prince's movie Purple Rain. Prince took over the world. The album doubled as the movie's soundtrack and was a massive success. It went to number 1 for 24 weeks. A big chunk of the movie is set in clubs where Prince performs, and those scenes were actually filmed at First Avenue in Minneapolis, Prince's real-life stomping ground.
His first motion picture.
People went nuts over Let's Go Crazy when it was dropped as the second single from Purple Rain. It ruled the top of the US dance chart, the Hot Black Singles chart, and the Billboard Hot 100. It's also a number 2 single in Canada, and it went to number 7 in the UK. Showing how versatile the song really was, it garnered play at rock radio in the US, rising to number 19 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock survey. All right, I'm going to throw a curveball at you for number 8. For my number 8 song on this Best of '84 countdown, I give you the late Laura Branagan's interpretation of Italian singer Raff's hit, Self-Control. The artist Raff co-wrote Self-Control with Giancarlo Bigazzi and Steve Piccolo. His version of the song became a massive hit in Italy, holding the number 1 spot for 7 non-consecutive weeks. It also topped the charts in Switzerland, sharing time at the peak with Laura Branagan's version. Both versions were out at the same time fighting it out. Beyond that, Raff's rendition climbed to number 2 in Germany, number 7 in Austria, and number 40 in France, making it a significant hit across Europe. Laura Branagan's rise to fame has an intriguing Italian connection. Her first major hit was Gloria, and that came in 1982, a powerhouse English language cover of Umberto Tozzi's 1979 Italian original. Now, Self-Control was unique among her Italian-inspired hits. It was originally written in English, and Branagan decided to record it just as it was, and the result was a global smash that cemented her place as a pop icon. A lot of people forget about Laura Branagan. She was amazing. This song takes me straight to 1984 every time I hear it, and Laura Branagan takes us as listeners to another level. I love how she approaches this song. Laura Branagan sadly died in her sleep after a fatal cerebral aneurysm. She was a bigger international pop star than many people realize. She had 7 top 40 hits in various parts of the world, while 2 of her 7 studio albums went gold, and one of them, Self-Control, went platinum. I mean, Laura's remake of Self-Control was so big, shot to number 1 in 4 countries in South America and 7 countries in Europe. It was also number 1 in South Africa and Canada. In the US, Laura's rendition climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. But on YouTube right now, 3 different videos of Laura's rendition have over 110 million views each, including one with 280 million and another with 181 million. Now, continuing with our countdown of the best songs of 1984, we're motoring with Night Ranger and their power ballad, Sister Christian. I had to have a power ballad in there.
Sister Christian, oh, the time has come.
Night Ranger lead singer Jack Blades did not perform the lead vocal on Sister Christian. Instead, that honor went to the band's drummer, the Will Ferrell lookalike Kelly Keagy. Sister Christian was inspired by drummer Kelly's younger sister Christy, and it came from the band really mishearing the song title. He was going to call it Sister Christy. Here's what they said in my interview with the band.
His sister's name is Christy, and he was singing it like, Sister Christy, oh, the time. I always thought he was saying Sister Christian. I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. Sister Christian. You know, I love the look of that, you know, the thought of that. How lyrical and how, you know, poetic and how, you know, you just see a painting immediately, Sister Christian, you know. And then one day he wrote it down, Christy. I'm like, that's not, dude, what are you, Christy? And he goes, well, that's my sister. I said, I thought you were singing Sister Christian. He goes, no, it's Christy. And I'm like, dude, poetic license. Kelly, we got to change it.
Sister Christian was Night Ranger's biggest hit, moving all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart. It went to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 1 in Canada. Coming in at number 5 on our countdown, it's the progressive rock band Yes and their comeback sensation, Owner of a Lonely Heart. Owner of a Lonely Heart was the lead single from 90125, an album that marked a dramatic shift for these prog rockers. Moving away from their 70s prog rock roots, the record produced by the innovation of Trevor Horn embraced the distorted guitars and synthesizers that defined the 80s sounds, like new wave and prog rock mixed. And thanks to a striking music video that received heavy rotation on MTV, Yes attracted a fresh audience. That fresh audience, really listeners unfamiliar with their earlier sprawling art rock epics that often stretched beyond 10 minutes, but it brought a lot of new fans into the pack. The song was written by Trevor Rabin on the toilet. Luckily, he had his guitar. He finished the song right there on the Porcelain God right before he flushed. Legendary record man Phil Carson was able to get John Anderson to come back into the band and do this song, sing it, even though John wasn't a big fan of it. Here's what John told me about it.
What the song's doing, you got this da 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 da. And the vocals la 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 la. Oh, it's too slight. You got to do it very attacking, you know, to go with the band. Da da, move it da 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 da.
Owner of a Lonely Heart, with an expertly crafted chorus by principal writer and guitarist Trevor Rabin, it lived up to its lofty projections, ascending to number 1 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart and the Billboard Hot 100. By the way, it also rang the number 1 bell in Bolivia. Very cool. Billy Idol and Steve Stevens slide into the halfway point of our countdown of the best songs of '84 with the mysterious ballad, Eyes Without a Face. That's at number 5. Eyes without a face. Now, in his memoir, Dancing with Myself, Billy Idol shared his lifelong fascination with old black and white horror films, particularly the haunting 1960 French movie, Eyes Without a Face. I'm not even going to try to say the French version, directed by George Franjo. Now, for Billy Idol, the film's eerie themes struck a chord. Living in New York during the 1980s, he saw a reflection of its moral decay and the story's grim undertones, adding a deeper, much more personal resonance to the inspiration behind his hit song. Some of my favorite moments that I've had talking with artists, my time with Billy Idol and Steve Stevens about their songs. Here's what they told me about Eyes Without a Face.
Les Yeux Sans Visage, The Eyes Without a Face. It was a French horror. His daughter or his wife or someone has been horribly scarred in an accident or something, so he's kind of kidnapping other women, and so he could use their facial skin to try and recreate his wife's face. So it's a bit of a sick movie, but well, I thought that's a pretty weird title, and we were looking for, how can I write an alternative love song that's, it's just not obvious. That's kind of the MO of Billy Idol, was not to be super obvious, but still at the same time come up with something that stood the test of time.
Eyes Without a Face was the follow-up single for their title track for the Rebel Yell album. The song was a popular song all throughout the world. It reached number 18 in the UK, number 10 in Germany, number 6 in Canada, number 4 in New Zealand, and number 4 here in America on the Billboard Hot 100. Jumping up to our number 4 spot on the 1984 countdown is The Girl That Just Wanted to Have Fun. Talking about Cyndi Lauper, showing another side of her talent with her heartfelt performance on Time After Time.
You will find me. Time after time.
Cyndi Lauper co-wrote Time After Time with Rob Hyman, one of the founding members of the Hooters. Cyndi had already recorded most of her groundbreaking debut album, She's So Unusual, including the hits Girls Just Want to Have Fun and She Bop. But her producer, Rick Chertoff, he insisted there was room for another song. So Cyndi and Rob Hyman sat down at a piano and they started to craft what would become Time After Time. Here's what Rob Hyman told me about singing the duet and helping to write this song.
She said, Time After Time. I started playing it at the piano, just the hook, Time After Time.
Time after time. If you fall, I will get...
But it was a much more up-tempo, a little bit of a ska reggae-ness to it, a little bouncier. And then over time, it slowed down and became what it was. And then we were like right into the studio. And I always tell people what's amazing about that is the record is the demo.
Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time was a massive hit. It went to number 2 in the entire continent of Europe, number 2 in Mexico, Israel, and Canada. And it was a number 1 single on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart, as well as the pop charts here in the U.S.
Time after time.
Coming in at number 3 on our countdown of the best songs of 1984, we find Billy Joel with An Innocent Man. An Innocent Man by Billy Joel was the 3rd single from his album of the same name. The song pays tribute to the musical style of Ben King and the Drifters, capturing their timeless charm. You can definitely hear it at the bass line. The lyrics came from a very personal place for Mr. William Martin Joel. Billy Joel's An Innocent Man is both a heartfelt homage to the 60s era R&B he grew up loving and a reflection of his own teenage romantic experiences. In an interview, Billy revealed that while he typically labors over every single note, An Innocent Man was very different. For that album, the songs just flowed out of him effortlessly. After spilling his energy into the thematically intense and sonically intricate album, my favorite album of all time, I might add, The Nylon Curtain, Billy Joel was ready for a change of pace. Fresh off a divorce and dating supermodels Christy Brinkley and Elle Macpherson, he said it felt like a teenager all over again. And inspired by that youthful energy, Billy decided to revisit the music of his own teenage years, which were the late 50s and early 60s before the Beatles came and blew everything wide open. You know, when rock and roll is carefree, lighthearted, and innocent. The result was An Innocent Man. It was a playful departure from his earlier style. While it surprised some listeners, Billy had an absolute blast making this record. One of the highlights of An Innocent Man is how Billy showcases his vocal range and hits some high notes that were a bit of a surprise to him and to his most ardent fans. Billy basically said he knew he'd never be able to hit those high notes again, as he was getting older. so he decided to go out with a big bang. By his next tour, he already had a backup singer named Peter Hewlett belting out the chorus because it's just way too high for him. It's very high. An Innocent Man, it tells the story of a man trying to reassure a woman scarred by betrayal that he's different from the other guys. It's one of those Billy Joel songs that hit me straight in the gut. The lyrics are nothing short of brilliant, but his verse 4 is the one that resonates with me most when he says, some people run from a possible fight, some people figure they can never win.
A possible fight. Some people figure they can never win.
And although this is a fight I can lose, the accused is an innocent man.
Innocent man.
Man, this song, you listen to his vocal, and it's just the way his dynamics, the adjustments he makes in the song, again, it hits you right in the gut. And Billy Joel, I remember the critics used to tear him apart when I was a kid, and I loved him. He's my favorite artist of all time. They never listened to An Innocent Man, that's for sure. This is writing, this is jukebox poetry. I can't say enough about this song. It's just one of the most emotional pieces of music from 1984. And honestly, it was tough to decide between this and The Longest Time, which is a song that Billy sang every single part to and has no music. It's got a bass line, but he sang every part.
For the longest time.
Anyway, An Innocent Man went to number 16 in Canada, number 8 in the UK, number 5 in Venezuela, number 3 in Ireland, number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 here, and it went to number 1 on the AC chart. All right, hitting the bridesmaid spot on our best songs of 1984, the faded number 2. It's another striking departure from the musical repertoire of one of the staple rock bands of that era. I'm talking about Drive, the breathtaking ballad by the Cars.
Who's gonna drive you home tonight?
Now, Drive was written by Rick Ocasek, but he elected to have his bandmate Benjamin Orr sing the vocal. And Benjamin executed an emotional tour de force here. His natural plaintive tone, it was perfect for the authenticity of this moving song, as was the minimalist arrangement produced by Mutt Lange.
Who's gonna pick you up?
There's a lot of theories about this song. Now, while Rick Ocasek has never confirmed it, there's been plenty of speculation that Drive is about manic depression or bipolar disorder. The idea is that when you're released from the hospital, someone has to drive you home. During the manic phase of the condition, the person feels like everything's fine, thinking nothing's wrong, right? Like the lyrics say.
Thinking nothing's wrong.
You look closer at the lyrics, like who's going to hold you down when you shake, who's going to come around when you break. It really seems to capture the feeling of some of the things going on in a nervous breakdown.
When you break.
The song wouldn't have been nearly as moving and empathic if it were sung with big notes and a towering production. Benjamin's inspired performance really gave Drive the sensitivity and the vulnerability that it deserved to make it such an artistic standout in a year full of unforgettable classics. That's where Benjamin Orr's talent comes in. Incredible vocalist. The song finishes with Benjamin singing a hauntingly long note on the final tonight, really punctuating the bittersweet beauty of it all.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Really powerful moment. And while the Cars might not be the first band you'd think of for a heartfelt ballad from the 80s, Drive absolutely proved just how talented these musicians were together. So it's time to reveal the best song of 1984 on our countdown on this top 10. For me, this was an easy selection. The best song of 1984 is Panama by the Mighty Van Halen. Panama has nothing to do with the country. It's actually about a stripper David Lee Roth met in Arizona. Diamond Dave explained that the song came to life after an interview in the early 80s where the interviewer accused him of only writing songs about sex, drugs, and fast cars. Now, after the interview, Diamond Dave realized, I've never written a song about fast cars. So he started working on Panama. So I'm glad for that ridiculous interviewer. Later, Dave admitted in another interview that the song ended up being about a stripper he knew, even though he hadn't realized it at first. The lyrics ended up drawing inspiration from both the stripper and the car. Very rock and roll. Panama was one of the first tracks recorded at Eddie Van Halen's 5150 Studios. The name 5150 is, of course, California's police code for a person who's mentally unstable and causing a disturbance. Panama was also one of the last songs Van Halen recorded before DLR left the band for good. Now, in the bridge of the song, when David Lee Roth sings that incredible part, "I can barely see the road from the heat coming off," you can actually hear Eddie Van Halen revving his 1972 Lamborghini Miura S in the background.
I can barely see the road from the heat coming off.
The car was backed up to the studio and the mics were set up on the exhaust pipe to capture the authentic sound for this track.
Reach down between my legs.
Panama nearly topped the mainstream rock chart, even though it didn't do as well on the pop charts. It idled at number 2. But with its turbocharged Eddie Van Halen riff and not so subtle DLR sexual innuendos, the song was limited beyond the album rock radio format. Panama raced to number 2 on the singles chart in Argentina. Went to number 13 here. Should have been a number 1 hit. All right, that wraps up our countdown of the top 10 best songs of 1984. Those are my 10. One of the deepest years in music history. So many great songs. We could easily do a countdown of the top 100 songs from that year. Let me know if you want to see that. With that in mind, here are my 3 honorable mentions. I Can Dream About You. Irresistible, feel-good song by Dan Hartman. One that catapults me right back to 1984. And man, it would have made it in the top 10 on any other week. Then the tribute to Martin Luther King, Pride in the Name of Love by U2. Also, Heart of Rock and Roll by Huey Lewis and the News. Man, Sports was such a massive album in 1984, as well as Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen and the Footloose soundtrack. Anyway, by the way, speaking of Huey Lewis, you know how we always talk about all the great bands and artists at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snubs? Well, I decided to start my own Hall of Fame. Actually, it's your Hall of Fame. Call it the People's Music Hall of Fame. And our first annual induction is this February. And we're going to do this all the right way. You can actually get tickets for it. I'll post below for it. Our first inductee is none other than Huey Lewis. All the details are below. Come join us. Come meet me. We can hang out. So what do you think about this top 10? What are your top 10? Should we do a top 100? Let's have a great celebration about 1984. I just thought as we get to the end of the year here, celebrating 40 years since 1984, that I do a top 10. Let me know if you'd like to see more. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.